Can't really take any more questions. Can't take any more questions from the floor, really. But panel, what I propose is this. You've heard the points that are raised. Some of them were comments, some of them were questions, like the one specifically to you, Christopher Hitchens, about the Holocaust. You're going to have a few minutes to make your closing statements. Please incorporate these questions that you heard in your closing statements, because audience, I want you to vote again. You've heard the presentations, you've heard some of the responses and some of the points that have been raised by the audience here. So please do. Let me just remind you how you vote, okay? If you are for the motion that the Catholic Church is a force for good in the world, then just tear this off and put it in the box. If you're against the motion that the Catholic Church is a force for good, rip this up, take the bit that's against and put that's in the box. If you're still undecided, then just put the whole ticket into the box. That's how to vote. Now, for those of you who are watching at home, if you'd like a briefing booklet on some of those issues that you've heard raised today, then please go to www.intelligencesquared.com and you can download that booklet. Anybody can do it, and it's absolutely free. Okay, so everybody is doing that. So while you're all doing that, it's going to take a little bit of time. We're going to hear the closing statements incorporating some of the points that you, the audience, raised. And we're going to do it in reverse order this time. And it's going to be Stephen Fry first. Let me just remind you about some of the points, or did you make notes about them?
I've made notes, yeah.
You've made notes. excellent chap, Stephen. You're doing the work. So Stephen Fry, final statements, please. Oh, stay sitting.
Sorry. Observant chap, aren't I? Yes. Well, it's been a really interesting debate, and I've loved some of the questions from the floor. I suppose I'm slightly disappointed that Anne Widdecombe in particular should say, oh, I knew they'd bring up condoms and child rape and homosexuality. It's a bit like a burglar in court, so you would bring up that burglary and that manslaughter. You never mention the fact I give my father a birthday present. You know, it's, yes, are you getting the message? There is a reason we hammer home these issues, because they matter. They matter to people's hearts and souls. I make no apology to the lady who said this is supposed to be intelligence squared. Why are you being so emotional? We're talking about religion and souls here. I make no apology for being emotional about that subject. I make no apology for apparently not understanding the theology of Thomas Aquinas and Augustine of Hippo, or the Council of Trent, or various other extraordinary conventions that ruled on limbo. Don't tell me there's some magisterial and mystical reason behind limbo that I'm too stupid to understand. That's not good enough. It really isn't. As a rather more contemporary theologian, Bultmann, said, the problem with mysticism is it begins in mist and ends in schism. And it's terribly disappointing to hear that those who want to stand up for a church that is based on a founder who was put to death by capital punishment, who, for all we know from what he said, seemed to be very, very understanding, imaginative, pure, simple, remarkably intelligent in a Socratic kind of way. And he is represented by, really, I'm afraid, pretty low-rent intelligences and pretty low-rent imaginations. They are not connected at the moment, it seems to me, with the aspirations and desires of the human race. There's such an opportunity, owning 1 billion souls at baptism, that can never be unowned, to answer that lady's question, until she's excommunicated. So yes, you are counted. It's such an opportunity to do something remarkable to make this planet better. And it's an opportunity that is constantly and arrogantly being avoided, and I'm sorry for that.
Okay, thank you. Final statement from Conservative MP Anne Widdecombe for the motion that the Catholic Church is a force for good in the world.
Right, can I first answer the point raised by the lady over there about how she'd been helping women who were in danger of death even from pregnancy and childbirth. and answer the allegation behind it, which is that somehow the reason why so many women in the third world continue to go on having children beyond a safe point is all because it's the wicked Catholic Church. Let me point out the obvious, that if you're in a country where the mortality rate is extremely high, where you do not expect the majority of your children to survive into adulthood, and there is no convenient abbey field to nip to, the reason that you have children is for security in your old age. And in case anybody thinks I'm making that up, may I point out that I did actually go out with an aid project to Zambia, and I asked woman after woman about why they had such large families when they couldn't feed them, and the answer was always the same. Somebody has got to look after me when I am old. Don't let's forget that. And then, of course, we have had all the usual stuff about how the Catholic Church, being against condoms, has apparently caused untold misery. I'm not going to cite the Catholic Church now. I'm going to cite people who wouldn't want to be associated with the Catholic Church. Dr. Edward Green, Liberal, agnostic, Harvard Center for Population and Development Studies, writes, 20 years into the pandemic, there is no evidence that more condoms leads to less AIDS. We're simply not seeing what we expected. And he goes on to say that in Africa, where many have to go miles even to get an aspirin, a number of researchers are now questioning whether the universal ideal of perfect condom use, because that is what is required, with a regular supply is quite simply unattainable. John Richens of the Centre for Sexual Health and HIV Research says, we should ask why condom promotion is apparently not having much effect in most developing countries. And finally, Dr. Trevor Stammers, none of these people Catholics. There are no examples to date from any country in the world that has reversed a generalized epidemic by means of condom promotion alone. Now, if we are true to wanting to help people, if we are really true to it, then we should face up to that perhaps rather inconvenient fact that what was expected hasn't actually happened. I could go on, I could quote UNAIDS, I could quote the Wellcome Trust, research after research now suggesting that condoms actually are not the answer that they were once thought to be. And when I said that our opponents are obsessed with sex, I meant it in this way. The only nastiness tonight, and there's been virtually none, the only nastiness tonight came when Stephen Fry accused the Archbishop of being sexually dysfunctional, because he said that celibate priests and monks had no right to tell him what to do because they were, and I quote his words, sexually dysfunctional. As I've said, our opponents always try to home in on sex when the teachings of the Church, which are, after all, only about the stability of family, the maintenance of fidelity, the virtue of chastity, when the Church teaches that as one part of all its teaching, I do sometimes despair at the way that these debates always come back to that. So I'm very pleased to have been here tonight, despite the fact that I think the incoming poll was slightly discouraging. I'm very pleased to have been here with the Archbishop and with the two gentlemen opposite, and thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Against the motion, Christopher Hitchens.
Those who ask confessions from other people should be willing to make one oneself. I am obsessed with sex. Ever since I discovered that my God-given male member was going to give me no peace, I decided to give it no rest in return. Seems fair to me. Now, two people asked me to be very quick and do world poverty and the Holocaust, and I'll do that. There is only one cure for world poverty that's ever been found or ever will be, and it's very simple. And it can be phrased very simply too. It's called the empowerment of women. Go to Bangladesh or Bolivia. I have to ask you to hold your applause, though I love you. Go to Bangladesh or Bolivia, give women control over their reproductive cycle, throw in a handful of corn if you can, make them not just the beasts of burden and the beasts of childbearing that they become, and the floor will rise, it just will. It never fails anywhere. Against this one solution, the Catholic Church has set its face. The efforts of the missionary church in the Third World mean more people die, not less. It's as simple as that. More famine, more disease, more ignorance, more random and avoidable death. To the Holocaust, sir, that the church preached that the Jewish people were collectively responsible for the death of Christ until 1964, till nearly 20 years after the Nuremberg trials, may or may not have something to do with the availability of a reservoir of anti-Jewish hatred in countries like Poland, Spain, Italy, Germany, Austria, and elsewhere. I think it does have something to do with it, okay? The Ten Commandments, 3 of them are awe-inspiring. They're about being afraid of a totalitarian figure. 3 of them are ordinary morality. We know of no code of ethics ever found, and the Archbishop bears me out on this, that recommends murder, theft, or perjury. Putting adultery on the same level as that may not be morally advisable. Saying that covetousness should be considered in the same light as a crime, in other words, a thought crime. You're condemned now for something you're thinking, and it may be something that leads you to enterprise and emulation. That's forbidden too. That's very, very iffy, it seems to me, and there's a very iffy part of it which lumps those you mustn't covet in with the animals and the chattels and your property, and those who it lumps in are your womenfolk. And do you seriously expect to be taken seriously if you say that that commandment that does reduce women to beasts of burden and childbearers and chattel has nothing to do with the appalling position of women, not just in poorer societies, but in ours as well? Again, for shame if you can feel it. Now, unanswered questions. Amazing. I asked, where is Cardinal Law, Bernard Law, and why? I have an authority here. He ducks the question. Anne Widdecombe, sorry, I've got one more thing to say about that. He also says that the church advises against homosexuality. It teaches against it. No, it doesn't. Any more than it teaches against divorce or contraception. Where it can, it bans these things and punishes them and writes them into the criminal code. If all you were doing, sir, ma'am, were offering advice, we could probably be fine with it. No one, though they were asked repeatedly, would say whether they thought Stephen Fry, my friend, was in a state of mortal sin or not. They wouldn't tell you. Something about the question brought out their inner coward. Well, I say that homosexuality is not just a form of sex, it's a form of love, and it deserves our respect for that reason. That when my children were young, I'd have been proud to have Stephen as their babysitter, and I'd told them they were lucky. And if anyone came to my door as a babysitter wearing holy orders, I'd call first a cab and then the police. And it's your fault, sir and ma'am, it's your fault that that's true and that everybody knows it's true. How you can live with it, I don't know. Now, relativism, I thought we were agreed. But Anne Widdecombe says slavery has to be considered in context. What's more relative than that? There were people at the time, Thomas Paine, Benjamin Franklin, there were innumerable humanists and secularists who said slavery is evil. The church wouldn't agree. Now, which is it then? Is it that the church is wrong, or, even more suggestive, that God has not yet revealed that it's wrong to them? Or did God support it all those years and then change his mind? From a beginning point of absurdity, you arrive at a terminal point of absolute moral chaos. And I think you've at least done us the favor of making that plain this evening. God, in short, God did not make man in his own image. It is precisely to the contrary. Mammals and primates made many gods and many churches in their own rival images. And that would explain, if these churches and faiths were invented by primates who are only half a chromosome away from a chimpanzee, which happens to be the case, it would explain a lot, would it not? I can't offer you absolution. Not in my power to do it. Stephen can't offer you absolution. First of all, we believe, we more or less know, there's no such thing. But if you confess your sins specifically, if you name them and don't just make them general, if you do so truly repenting of them, without any purpose of evasion, and if you make a firm purpose of amendment, you might be able still, while there's time, to live with your consciences. I wish you all the luck in the world in pursuing that course of action.
Thank you. Thank you. Final statement from our final speaker, Archbishop of Abuja, John Onaiken. You've got to make your final pitch now to the audience.
Thank you very much. I just want to draw the attention of the audience back to the topic. Yeah. And the topic is quite clear. The Catholic Church is a force for good in the world. He did not say it is the only source for good. He did not say it has always been a source for good. It's not in the past tense, it's in the present tense, is a source for good. The way I learned logic, this is the way I would proceed. Which is why when we are being brought back to all the evils in the past, I kept asking myself, are my friends digging into all those because they really have no proper argument to say against the motion? Because from all they have said, I still have not seen how they have in any way shown that the Catholic Church is not a force for good in the world. There are other people, of course, who are forces for good in the world. We are just one of them, and I still believe that so we are. And I just want to bring that to the attention of this body, if at all it is possible, because from what I'm saying, probably many are not really listening in that direction. But also what worries me a bit is the way the Catholic Church has been described from across this table. Mrs. Wetherman already mentioned a few cases where there have been a clear caricature of both the Catholic Church and its position. If it is a caricature, sometimes caricatures are very funny and they are quite entertaining, but I do not think we are here about entertainment. I think it is important, if this is a serious discussion, that one makes a little effort to actually get to understand exactly the truth about the matter. I can say all kinds of things about other people, but I think it is fair enough that when it comes to what does the church say about condoms, what does it say about homosexuality, what does we say about women priests, we need to take the trouble to find out exactly what it is saying, not what the newspapers are saying that we are saying. Unfortunately, this is not a forum to give you a proper exposition of the Catholic faith. And in fact, I seriously resisted the temptation to preach to you. It seems that all the preaching today came from the other side. And but anyway, be that as it may, I must mention two issues that was raised. We have been told that the whole genocide in Rwanda is a fault of the Catholic Church because the Rwandans are practically all Muslims. If there's going to be a genocide, it has to be done by somebody. They happen to be Muslims. In any case, that a bishop was accused. Yes, a bishop was accused, but the bishop was discharged and acquitted because he was falsely accused. When he was accused, all the world media were there because this was great news. A bishop accused of genocide. The day he was discharged and acquitted, they were not interested. Nobody was interested to hear that Bishop Augustine Misago has been discharged and acquitted because he was accused on false, trumped-up charges. As for condoms, Mrs. Wetherman already has shown that there are scientific positions that support the position of the church. All I want to add here is this. If indeed the burden of HIV and AIDS is in Africa, know that it is my nephews, my nieces who are most affected. And let nobody out there think that they care more about the life of my own nieces and nephews than I care. So if we take a position, it is because we seriously believe that this is the right position. We are not talking of the validity or the value of one sexual act with a good condom done properly. We are talking of condoms being distributed indiscriminately to young people and being told that once you wear this, you are safe. The fact is that when that is done, AIDS is increased, not decreased. I think this is been proved from epidemiological research. It's not talking about whether condom protects from one act, but when it comes to a whole lot of people, like the situation in most countries of Africa, and the situation of health services, right down to simple aspirin, then we know what we are talking about. Finally, we have this event has been very useful. I'm very happy to have been here. We never said that the Catholic Church is perfect. Some questions were proposed to the Archbishop. I'll think about it. We continue to do our best to be as close as we can to Jesus Christ and what he wants us to be, and to constantly be a force for good in the world. Right. And I thank you.
Archbishop, thank you. Audience, you've all voted again. Now, the moment of truth panel. Let me remind everybody that before the debate, when everybody came in, this is how you voted. For the motion that the Catholic Church is a force for good in the world, 678. Against the motion, 1,102. And the undecideds, the don't knows, were 346. This is how you voted subsequently. For the motion that the Catholic Church is a force for good, from 678, it's gone to 268. I'm sorry. Against the motion, it's now 1,876. And you can see that doesn't leave very many don't knows. It's 34 undecided. So commiserations, Archbishop and Anne Widdecombe. Congratulations, Stephen Fry and Christopher Hitchens. Thank you all. If you want to know more about Intelligence Squared debates, then please do go to the website www.intelligencesquareddebates. From me, Zain Abidawi, goodbye.